today is meant to celebrate the successes. And in doing that, we look back at where we came from, where we are now, and how do we achieve this goal of equality in the trans community. So that's where we're going to go today. And I want to first thank each of you for joining with us. Later, we'll join by another guest. She will be a bit late, 15 minutes or so. Let me thank, of course, the COC Groningen and Drenthe Board for its initiative in continuing to tackle these issues as they face our communities, whatever they may be. We do not sit down and let it slide by. All right, so guys, and let's get started with this particular issue of trans visibility. Now, the history says that before this, it used to just have one Memorial Day, and that was viewed as for persons who may have tragically died and so on. But they didn't represent the trans community itself. And so this day was born to celebrate its successes and not just the sad moments when we looked at it in a memorial type of way. How do you see trans visibility today, Lika?
Well, in my opinion, there's a lot of attention for trans people these days, and that is really good. But it's also a lot of negative, like stigmatization, and a little bit like like a negative view of transgender people, and also nowadays you have a lot of non-binary people, and there are a lot of them, and I think it's good with the visibility. Only the negative view or what you read or
And Ellie, for you, where do you see our visibility right now in 2021?
I think even now with how many rights the transgenders are receiving around the world and the equality that they are slowly achieving, we are still far away from fully social equality for transgender people, is still, for me, is still the first stone in the long way. And I think the transgender people, they need more than visibility.
Yeah,
it's not just about visibility, but it's about not feeling discriminated, not feeling have a proper access to health insurance, to many things. So so I think it's very important that to bring visibility is not just once a year. We celebrate this visibility, Transgender Day of Visibility, but to keep this topic up, and and to keep talking about the transgender people, wherever if they are, For me, it's mostly the most vulnerable group within the transgender people are the sex workers and the refugees. And to achieve really fully social equality to those people, we still have long way before we achieve fully social equality.
Do you get the feeling though that it's in the public domain, but there's no real work being done, but it's just publicity sort of?
We have the first transgender politician in the Netherlands, installed last week, and she was elected to work on those issues. If she'll be a true politician and does not, or is she there and will do the things? That's something to see.
Yes.
As she was the president of Transvision in the Netherlands, so a Transvision of transgender group with lots of information, knowledge for transgenders, about transgenders, for people working with transgenders. So she does have a lot of information about them. The only thing I have heard about her, which is strange, is that she didn't have her operation in the Netherlands. So she is, the face of Transgender Netherlands, but never explored the health issues in the Netherlands because she went abroad. So that's fairly strange.
Yes. Now you've mentioned
actually it's her inauguration today in the parliament, and based on my experience, because I worked in the past and still working with the local NGO in Amsterdam, and we have a lot of transgender refugees that they come to our organization and they seek the support. And actually, I think that the health insurance, especially regarding transformation or medication or getting an access for medicine, the hormones, to change, is still difficult especially for transgender newcomers, for transgender refugees. They are sitting in the camps, and unless if you have your papers, unless if you have
if you're a Dutch citizen, it's still a problem of waiting. But if you're a refugee, then it's a big problem.
Not Dutch citizen, not only Dutch citizen. If you have a permit, to stay here,
yes,
the permit of 5 years, then you are allowed to have an access, to go to the hospital, to check with the psychologist, with the doctors for your transmission, and to have medicine. But for people that they still have no they have no permit yet, and they are waiting in the camps, and the waiting period is just enough by itself, for mentally, for transgender is unbearable, is unjustified. And imagine this long period, and sometimes it can take 1 year, sometimes it can take 1.5 years, 2 years, people before transgender, they get their permit to stay here. And many of them, they used to take their medicine in their home country, and then they come here, they stop the medicine, the hormones, until they get the permit. So this is really big problem. This is really big big issue we face. And that's why many of the transgender, they come to our organization because of our contact with the VMC. VMC is, it used to be the only hospital for transmission, and where trans people can take hormones and medicine. Not anymore. I heard that there is another hospital now.
There are several, yes.
Yes. So it's really problem. They come to us to seek support, if we can connect them with the right NGOs to get a treatment, so they don't stop treatments, And we saw also last few weeks, it was in all the news, the suicide of Marlon. I don't know if you heard about this story, the Chinese transgender, that she had to flee from China. And then she was for 1.5 years or 1 year in the procedure, and she still didn't get the permit, So, and she committed suicide a few weeks ago on the railway, in one of the train station in the Netherlands. And it's just really difficult, And as Lynn said, unless if you have a permit or if you have Dutch citizen, then it's something else. And
true.
And
even then you have to wait, of course, but you're in a system, you're going to get help. But if you don't have those papers, then it's very difficult to get the help you really need.
Now, you've raised a very interesting point there in terms of a number of people leave their countries, migrants and refugees, to come to the Netherlands with the hope, of course, that they get a better life.
Exactly.
How would you describe that situation?
They end up with disappointments because they come here to, in a hope for a better life, and that many of them, they choose actually the Netherlands to come here because they thought that the Netherlands is advanced, the Netherlands is tolerant, the Netherlands is open mind. but maybe it's tolerant, is advanced, is open mind to a specific group. If you are local, if you are born here, if you are European. But if you are outside of this network, if you are coming as a newcomer, it is difficult. It is very hard.
Let me ask Lika, in terms of young people and some of the challenges they face. Now we spoke about what the migrants and refugees face.
Yeah.
But here, you're a Dutch person here as a young person. What sort of challenges do you face?
Well, I think you had Eddie told about that refugees have it hard here. But I think if you're just coming from here, European or just Dutch, it's also hard. You know, we also face a lot of problems in the medical world and also with years of waiting lists for surgeries. And there are a lot of, how you say that the insurance company makes it really hard for trans people to get their surgeries. And you just have to get a lawyer and just go in a procedure to hope that you get your surgery cost back. And otherwise, if I speak for myself, I can't pay surgeries because you're looking about like 20,000 euros. And also, I think if you're not really passing, you know, like people can see that you're transgender or not like a biological man or woman. You see also in the Dutch that people still judge, and your career options are really less. You know, you're just less successful, and that I also see with a lot of trans women who are super talented but don't get the jobs they want because you can still see that they're born as male. And also my best friend, you know, some trans people are passing. You don't see that they are trans. And when I look at them, I can see they're a lot more successful because people can't really judge about them.
Yeah, yeah. Your opinion, how do you believe that, you know, despite all the progressiveness that we talk about and so on, how is it in 2021? This is what is being faced.
Yeah, that's a very good question indeed. Well, personally, I only have my own experience, of course, and I have had waiting lists, but I'm fairly lucky because I've only had my coming out in 2015 and my operation in 2018, and I'm fairly passable. In 3 years' time, I have successfully completed my whole transition. And the only thing I still have to continue doing is electrolysis for my face to remove my facial hair once every 3 weeks. But apart from that, I'm completely finished. So I haven't had truly long waiting list or truly enormous problems. Even at work, I still work at a place where I used to. The same, well, colleagues, the same workplace. They all accept me. My family accepts me. So I'm fairly, well, lucky in that aspect. As where Lika also told us, not all transgenders have the same luck I have. I'm one of the few who has. Most transgenders have lots of problems, psychological, emotional, socially, on family, business, work, finding work. A lot of transgenders also earn about minimum wages, so paying for operation from own money is almost impossible. So you need to have, well, the discussion with the health insurance companies, and mostly that's not a problem. But if you are fairly passable, they often reject your questions for the money for
so there's not a set policy one for all. It's really based on what they determine.
It's individually, checked. Every request is individually checked.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And there are a lot of different health companies, not one whole.
What then is a possible solution for this, Lynn?
One possible solution is, of course, visibility, knowledge. Tell the people, tell the world what the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Because not just transgender, but also people with mind problems, walking by psychiatrists, psychologists, they also have the same problems we have because the waiting list is enormous. There are a lot of Dutch people either born here or not, who has mental health problems and have an enormous long waiting list. And transgender is only one of those.
Yeah.
So we need a lot of more, well, psychologists, a lot of more companies accepting people to help. And they have been working for it for years now. But like so many other things in the Netherlands, like I told you before, the politicians, they state one thing and do another. So
what's her name? The new member of parliament, the transgender.
Lisa van Ginneken.
Lisa, I hope she will do something because really the challenges are many.
Yeah, and I hope she will be allowed to do something.
Yes, yes.
Because she's only one of 150 other.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as I said, the problem is a big issue, how to communicate, how to understand the problem, you know. And
communication is a very large thing with refugees. They come here to seek a better life, but communication, understanding is very difficult. And not just for transgender refugees, but all refugees.
Yeah, in 2000, I think 17 or 16, I don't remember exactly, but I think in 2017, we wrote a statement to the Tweede Kamer, to the second chamber, you know, as a petition. Stories of the LGBT refugees in the Netherlands, because of their security, because of their safety in the camp. We asked the second chamber, you know, and before that, the COA with many requests. The COA in the camps, they just try every time to, you know, do not look at the problem and do not recognize the problem, you know. We asked and we requested the second chamber to just make separate shelter and the separate houses for LGBT, not only transgender. I'm talking about not only transgender here, but in general about the LGBT people, because it's like they are experiment in the camps, you know, till the other refugees, they are integrated and learn about the society here and learn about the culture that that being a transgender or being homosexual here is okay to be homosexual or transgender, and there is nothing wrong with it, you know. And I think the refugees, the rest of the refugees, they need time to learn about the society. They are welcoming them, and they need time to integrate, you know.
But it's all about acceptance. I have heard some refugees that truly have problems with being homosexual or transgender, but they do want to be accepted themselves.
Yes.
So it's a two-way street. They want acceptance for themselves, but some don't accept being homosexual, which is almost the same type of acceptance.
Yes.
So they need to be shown a mirror, and they want acceptance, so they have to give acceptance also.
Yes. But meanwhile, you know, till the other refugees learn and to accept, you know, and to and not tolerate, because tolerate is not enough. To accept, you know, as you want me to accept you, you should accept me, you know. So tolerate is not enough. But meanwhile, the LGBT refugee and the transgender are like becoming like experiment group for the government, and they never replied to our request, you know, to have separate camps and to have separate shelters, you know. And also we seeked many requests. We sent many requests to the government that even in the waiting, while the transgender people are waiting to get the permit, they cannot stop their treatment, and they need to continue their treatment, you know. And this is impossible to stop their treatment, and this will affect them mentally, you know.
And you've not gotten any response on those issues as well?
Again?
You've not gotten any responses on those topics you've raised from the government?
Yeah, because the health insurance, they are not ready, you know, to cover the medicine and to cover the treatment for refugees as long as they are in the procedure and they have no paper yet and they don't pay for their insurance, you know, because it's not paid insurance, you know. So I think what we need is working hard on changing policies. This is what I think it's as we activists, you know, as we trans people, you know, as we people that we have influence, we can influence, we can talk with other people. I think we should the first thing on changing policies in politics, first in politics.
Yeah.
And regarding, you know, the rest in health insurance or what come after.
On the point that was Ellie just said about rooms and living in the same rooms, like LGBT people live in same rooms or whatever. I don't think it's a good idea for my side, because here at our camp, there's still people who are still scared about their people from their country. So they wouldn't want to be like, okay, like where I live, we say it's only for LGBT people. So they don't want to be known by people from their country.
If you mean if they live with LGBT alone?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we asked to have separate shelters, you know, like in Berlin. 2 years ago, I was visiting Berlin, and in Berlin, they have outside of the camp, outside of the AZC, you know, this building, it was organized by organization. I forget what was the name, but I visited this this building. It was all organized by local organization in Berlin. And maybe I believe it's not one building or one separate shelter, you know, is not enough to host so many, because we have so many gay refugees or lesbian or trans, you know. So I think the most important to create separate shelters outside of the AZC, you know.
Let me ask a
problem, because they, you know, the Dutch people, they think business and they think financially. If it will cost them a lot of money, then they won't consider it even, you know.
Oh, but that isn't only the problem in the Dutch, right? Like a lot of like European.
It's part of the problem, and one other problem that we face, that the government, one of the answers they replied on us, that we should treat all the refugees equally, because we are in the Netherlands, we treat each other equally, you know.
But let me ask this, and on the point, Lika, do you want to finish your point though?
Yeah, for me, it's more like, it's, of course, there's a big refugee problem, but I don't think it's specifically the Dutch policy, you know. It's all Europe, I think, who has these problems, and also with medicine, you know. And
okay, well, let me be devil's advocate for a moment and say this. There has been a constant call for separate housing for LGBT persons on a whole, but there's a school of thought that if you do that, you're not creating acceptance, but you're just sort of creating a bandage for the problem, which is, well, we have a problem living in an agency where people are not accepting us. Let's just put LGBT people somewhere else, quietly, privately behind there. But that doesn't mean that you create a concept of acceptance. What do you feel about that?
A good point. And I also think if you put the LGBT people together at the other side, they become very fragile and very visible. If the other refugees know, oh, that's the LGBT camp, and we are the normal camp, well, they become perhaps very visible, and it can become violent. Perhaps.
Yeah. All right, we do have Werner with us. Werner, thank you for taking time to join with us. We've already...
No, I'm sorry. I apologize. Hi to everybody. I apologize in advance because I am at the hospital. I didn't know what time was going to be this meeting. And I just had my appointment for the surgery, like the vaginoplasty at the VMC in Amsterdam. So I am inside the hospital. That's why I have to use the.
Thank you. I still appreciate that you're here with us. And I'm happy you're there because earlier we started talking about the health issues and challenges facing persons who are undergoing or seeking those. And we agreed that is a challenging procedure. Financially, getting the monies from the health insurance, getting them to pay. What has been your experience? And I think I was telling the rest earlier that your story is very interesting, as you mentioned to me before. Tell us a bit about how you got into it and where you are at the moment when it comes to the transition and the challenges you've had.
Yeah, well, I always knew I wanted to transition. But maybe as Larry said, maybe I'm not pretty sure what Larry said, but I am from Mexico. I come from Mexico, and in Mexico, I mean, the culture is it's a macho culture, and there is this very strict division between men and women, and how men should look like and how women should look like. So transitioning in my mind in Mexico was not possible. But when I came to the Netherlands, I came to do a master's. I came for a completely different reason. And then I saw what was going on in the country. Actually, I remember that I met at the UMCG in Groningen, a trans. And she was the head of the Department of Economy or something finances at the hospital. And to me, that was surprising because in Mexico, when you are trans, you only have three choices. No, you either you are have a cap salon, like a beauty salon, or prostitution, like that's the second one. Or the third one, you get married, and somebody you become a trophy wife.
A trophy wife.
And so in my mind, it was not possible to stay there and transitioning. But here, and I came here and I saw that, and I was thinking, wow, what is stopping me? And then I started transitioning. But first, I'm a corporate migrant, and second, I'm not Dutch, so the language barrier. Anyways, I really didn't know where to look for advice. It was a very weird world. And then I asked for asylum because I requested asylum because I didn't want to. My family was not happy with me transitioning, and then I didn't want to be illegal, so I stayed in the country legally. And I was thinking, how do I stay legally in the country? Then I requested asylum, which was denied because I didn't know. That's politics, and that's also law.
It's a big problem, actually. I know because of my contact with many Latin America transgender people. When they come here, they come on a tourist visa or a student visa, and then later they seek asylum, and then their asylum is denied because for the Dutch government here, they think is Mexico or Latin America is safe country for trans people, and they can go back there, but actually it's not safe. And I face this problem with many transgender people from Latin America, from Mexico,
yeah. But you know what is going on? Like by law, it's right, because the procedures, we have to understand that these are legal procedures and they follow the law. And in the case of Latin America, Mexico is a democracy. Mexico has institutions that fight or should fight discrimination. We have the institutions, we have laws, we have legislations. Like the culture is a completely different thing. And we have to keep in mind that one thing is what the law says, and the other thing is what the culture is.
Right, and that's a problem, not just there. I think that's a problem around the world. In our country, in the Caribbean, the law says you can't do one thing, but that does not prevent people who have their own opinions to express them. And the law, unfortunately, says, yeah, well, we didn't, it's not in our law book that you should punish LGBT people. So
as long as the law is not enforced,
that's my point.
It's pointless.
Right. We want to spend the last few minutes talking about the future. We talked about what is now and where we've come from. Moving forward, the topic, of course, the pathway to full equality, that's the theme this year. Those issues we discussed earlier, those are challenges that need to be addressed, obviously, if there is to be equality, because I think every other person can get their health to cover various things. They don't have to worry about discrimination. So I'm going to ask each of you to just sort of, in your head, what do you would like to see as we head into this year, as 2021 and so on, a new decade really. What would you like to see in the coming years? And maybe just tell me how urgent those items are in terms of, are those things that can wait for 10 years, 5 years, or they need to happen today? Let's begin with Lynn and we go down.
Well, first of all, I'd like to see honest politicians, which is very impossible, not just in the Netherlands, but everywhere across the globe. Next, I'd like to see the honest politicians being active and not just passive and only talk, nag, but do something, which is always very difficult to, well, get them off the seat. And of course, yeah, listening to institutions, listening to problems, and yet not just sitting there for just themselves, which in my opinion, most of them just are.
And what sort of time frame would you like to see that happening?
Yesterday.
All right, Ellie, next.
Yeah. Well, I think the Bayen in the last election, they had really good election programs for transgender people. I don't know if anyone ever read their program, but I think if we want to change something, it will change only politically, because everything is becoming politics, you know. Yeah. And to change something, we should vote to the right people, you know, that they are able to penetrate the system.
We shouldn't vote to the right people, we should vote to the left people.
Yeah.
The right people are the color. At the last elections, most people voted right.
Yeah, most people, that's why I was one of the most, supporter of Bayen, because Bayen, they were the only left party that they had a clear election program in terms of diversity, in terms of racism, in terms of diversity, and in terms of social equality. Anyway, what is important for me now, listen and read, trans stories and experiences are not enough. You said listen, but listen is not enough, you know? And it's not enough only to be inspired by, because we hear, oh, very nice story, very moving story, you know, and we are inspired. It's not enough to be inspired by, by the stories of the trans struggle. Trans people really, they need to be able to live without fear, without discrimination, and without violence. And trans people need to be treated in dignity and respect, you know. And what is important is to recognize the problem. If we didn't recognize the problem, you know, there is no solution. So recognize the problem and the struggle, and create opportunities. Give visibility in all possible ways, and work hard to change policies. This is what I mentioned before, you know, work hard on changing policies.
And what is your timeline for these events?
Yeah, this is I think how we can support trans people. This is how we can create safe spaces, and this is how we can we can reach, social equality to all the transgender people.
How long do you think that will happen? 1 year, 2 years?
1 year, as soon as possible, I
think. As soon as possible. Okay. Yeah. All right, Werner, you're next.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm a little bit more realistic. I believe in dreams, but I also believe in hard work. And I think if you want to see a change, be the change. In the case of trans people, I think the important thing is that they show themselves. I think Trans Visibility Day is the day where you can see that there is not only one way of being trans, there are many ways of being trans. And that means that you can be a politician, you can be a scientist, you can be an artist, you can be beautiful in your own way, not only like with their magazines and a picture that has behind artists and photographers and beautiful and computer programs that retouch everything. It's there are many ways, and I think we as trans can open spaces for differences. This is one, but I would also like to see trans people opening houses for trans people who doesn't have a house. Because unfortunately in Latin America, for instance, if you're trans, family rejects you. So I would like to see people doing these small things, like opening a house for trans, opening a space for families, giving love, small amounts of love if you want, but giving as much as we can.
Yeah.
And applying to become a politician, applying to become a leader, just opening up opportunities. I think that's very important, and I would expect to see this in the next 50 years.
Okay. Let me ask you then, for your closing comments, what sort of message would you like to send to young people who are still fighting to become visible, to accept themselves and seek the necessary advice, medical treatment, or who have just started and are now going through those struggles? What sort of message do you want to say to them today, Werner?
I would tell them, look at the stories, but also make your own story. Realize that you are your own people, you are your own person, and that you can get inspired by other people, but you have to make your own path also. Look for resources, look for people, ask for questions, look for institutions, look for opportunities. And you will fail 1, 2, 3 times. Keep going, because being trans, it's also being powerful.
Thank you very much, Werner. Let me ask Ellie, what sort of message you want to send to the trans community today? We're observing the International Day of Transgender Visibility. You've encountered a lot of challenges, but what sort of message you want to send to those persons today?
Me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Vedna already said it. Be yourself and force yourself, because you might face, denying from other, even not other communities, let's say not so far even from the LGBT community, because I see many gay people, they look down at the transgender people, and to be honest, and they think that they are not part of the gay community. But if it's necessarily, force yourself, as to show yourself and being visible. So this is my message to the trans people.
And Lynn, you're the final one. What sort of message you want to send today?
Well, I concur with the previous speakers. I love the message. Everyone, especially in the LGBT community, is special, and we don't want to be normal. Normal is something we absolutely don't want, but that's not just normal for LGBT people. That's for, that's boring, indeed, very boring. But a lot of people are looking towards us, what it's like being special. Well, they are also special. Everyone is special. No one is normal. Everyone is special, and that's something I'd like to say.
Yeah. So on this day of transgender visibility, I wish each of you a wonderful day. I thank you all, and I wish you all the best.